Father's Day. It arrives each year, a gentle knock on the door of June. It is a Sunday, often sunny, sometimes cloudy. But the weather outside rarely matters. What matters is the feeling inside. It is a day designated for fathers, for papas, for dads. We circle it on our calendars, we make plans, perhaps for a special meal, or maybe just a quiet moment of connection. This day whispers to us, reminding us of someone important, someone who often stood strong, like an old tree. This day holds a certain kind of magic, doesn't it? It brings forth a tide of memories, some vivid, some faded. We might remember a strong hand holding ours, or the sound of a familiar laugh echoing through the house. For some it's a day of pure joy, a celebration of presence. For others it can be tinged with a gentle sadness, a longing for what was. But for most it's a tapestry woven with both laughter and quiet reflection. It's a day to acknowledge a unique bond, a foundational relationship in our lives. On this particular Sunday, the world seems to pause, just for a bit. We think about the men who helped shape us.
My father, his name was Arthur. He was not a man of many words. He preferred actions, simple gestures. He worked with his hands mostly. A carpenter by trade, he could build anything from wood. Shelves, tables, even small toys when I was very young. His hands were often rough, calloused from his work. But they were always gentle when they held mine. He didn't talk much about his feelings. He showed them. He showed them in the sturdy roof over our heads. He showed them in the warmth of the fireplace he tended. He wasn't a hero in a cape, you see. He didn't rescue people from burning buildings. He didn't make headlines in the newspapers. His heroism was quieter, more personal. It was the heroism of daily effort, of steadfastness. He was the kind of man who got up before the sun. He worked hard all day, every day. He did it for us, for our family. He never complained, or at least I rarely heard him complain. He just did what needed to be done.
Fatherly love. It is a peculiar and powerful thing. Sometimes it is loud and boisterous, full of playful wrestling and shared adventures. Other times, it is a quiet strength, a steady presence. It is a lighthouse in a storm, a safe harbor. It doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Often it tiptoes in, on soft feet. It builds its nest in the everyday moments, in the shared routines, in the unspoken understanding. It is felt more than it is heard, a silent promise of protection and care. My father, Arthur, was a master of this quiet love. His affection wasn't in flowery speeches or expensive presents. It was in the way he fixed my broken bicycle, his brow furrowed in concentration. It was in the way he'd leave a small piece of his favorite dessert for me. It was in the stories he'd read, his voice a low rumble, before I drifted to sleep. These were his love letters, written in deeds, not words. He showed his heart through his hands, through his time, through his unwavering dependability. As a child, I didn't always understand this language. I saw other fathers who were more outgoing, more vocal with their praise.
I remember the feel of our small backyard. The grass was often damp in the mornings. My father, Arthur, would be there. He was trying to teach me to walk. I was a clumsy child, always tumbling. He would kneel, his large hands outstretched. His smile was patient, a soft encouragement. He never rushed me. He just waited. He knew I would get there eventually. This was his way. Quiet support, unwavering belief. He was a mountain, steady and calm in my tiny, wobbly world. He would celebrate the smallest victories. A single, unaided step was a triumph. He wouldn't cheer loudly. Instead, a gentle clap of his calloused hands, a warm light in his eyes. Those were his accolades. I learned early that his approval was a quiet thing. It wasn't shouted from the rooftops.
Section 2, Whispers in the Workshop. My father's workshop was a magical place. It smelled of freshly cut pine and wood shavings. Sunlight streamed through a dusty window, illuminating dancing particles of sawdust. Tools hung neatly on the walls, each in its proper place. Hammers, saws, chisels, They were extensions of his hands, his skill.
I would sit on a small stool in the corner. I watched him work for hours. He moved with a quiet precision, a deep focus. He transformed rough planks of wood into beautiful, useful things.
He didn't talk much while he worked. The sounds of the workshop were our conversation. The rhythmic rasp of a plane, the steady tap-tap-tap of a hammer, the low hum of his occasional tuneless whistle.
Sometimes, he would let me hold a piece of sandpaper. He'd show me how to smooth the edges of a small block of wood. My tiny hands fumbling, his large ones guiding me gently. It was a silent apprenticeship, a shared space of creation and quiet companionship.
Section 3, a world seen through small eyes. To my young eyes, my father was an unbreakable giant. He could lift heavy things, he could fix anything that was broken. He was the steady anchor in our family.
He was always there, a constant presence like the old oak tree in our front yard. I believed he was invincible, that no harm could ever touch him, that no problem was too big for him to solve.
Children often see their fathers this way, as heroes in ordinary clothes, as protectors against all the world's shadows. But sometimes, I would see small cracks in that image of invincibility.
I remember him coming home one day, his hand bandaged. He'd cut it at work. He winced when he moved it, though he tried to hide the pain. He still managed to read me my bedtime story that night. His voice a little strained, but steady.
Another time, he had a terrible cough that lasted for weeks. He looked pale and tired. Section 4. The weight of unseen burdens. As I grew a little older, I started to sense the unseen burdens he carried. Though he never spoke of them directly to me,
I'd sometimes see him at the kitchen table late at night, long after my mother and I had gone to bed. He would be sitting there with papers spread out. A ledger, bills, his brow furrowed in concentration. The dim kitchen light cast long shadows around him. He looked solitary, and for the first time I sensed a weight on his shoulders. A weight he tried to keep hidden from us.
there were hushed conversations between him and my mother. Words like overtime or tight month would drift to my ears. I didn't fully understand them, but I knew they were adult worries, worries that my father was trying to navigate. He always tried to shield me from these concerns.
In my presence, he was the calm, capable father, the one who could fix anything, the one who always had a reassuring smile, however faint it might sometimes be.
He worked incredibly hard.
One winter, my school shoes gave out. My father, Arthur, noticed. He examined my shoes with a thoughtful frown. His own work boots were also old. A few days later, a new shoebox appeared on my bed. Inside, a pair of shiny black school shoes. I thanked my father. He just smiled. Later, I noticed he still wore his old boots. His unspoken choice, his old boots for my new shoes, stayed with me. It was a lesson in selfless love. I remember when my father started working later. He used to be home for dinner most evenings. His presence at the table was a constant. Then, things changed subtly. He began arriving home after I was already finishing my homework. He would eat alone in the quiet kitchen, long after the day's energy had faded. He took on an evening shift at a lumber mill. He didn't elaborate on why.
His sacrifice was measured in those lost evening hours. He didn't ask for thanks, he just absorbed it, a testament to his unwavering commitment.
My love for books started early. Our small-town library was my favorite place. But owning books was a luxury. My father noticed my hunger for stories. He saw the joy in my eyes when I talked about a new book. One birthday, a tall new bookshelf appeared in my room. Crafted by his own hands, of course. Those books, that beautiful bookshelf, were the direct result of his overtime. He was building my small library with his sweat and his sacrificed hours. He didn't just give me books. He gave me a message that my dreams, my interests were important.
My father, Arthur, rarely preached about values. He lived his lessons. His sacrifices were powerful teachers.
He taught me about generosity through actions. He gave his time, energy, and resources. He gave without expecting anything in return.
I remember Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor. My father spent his weekend repairing her fence.
I watched him, sometimes handing him a nail.
This pattern of quiet giving extended beyond our family. He simply believed in helping others.
These moments shaped my understanding of true generosity. He was teaching me the satisfaction of selfless contribution.
These unspoken lessons in giving were among the most valuable gifts he ever gave me.
I must have been about 10 years old. A new passion had taken root in my heart. It was the world of colors, of paints, of trying to capture life on paper. My first canvases were often pieces of discarded cardboard. My paints were cheap, the brushes frayed, but in my small hands they felt like tools of magic.
I would spend hours lost in this pursuit, trying to paint the sunset or the old tree in our yard, or even the quiet intensity I saw in my father's eyes sometimes. A school art competition was announced one spring. The theme was My World. My heart leaped. This was my chance, I thought. A chance to show something I had made. A chance to share this secret joy that filled my quiet afternoons.
I decided I would paint our small house, nestled in its garden. I wanted to capture its warmth, its sense of safety, the feeling my father's presence always provided. It was an ambitious project for my limited skills and even more limited supplies.
My father, Arthur, watched me sometimes. He would stand in the doorway of my room. He rarely commented on my artwork directly. He was a man of wood and nails, of straight lines and sturdy structures. What did he make of my messy paints, my attempts to capture fleeting light?
I worried sometimes that he saw it as a frivolous pastime, a distraction from more practical things. He never discouraged me, though. He just observed with that quiet, unreadable expression of his.
I worked on my painting for weeks. Every spare moment was dedicated to it. I poured all my childish hope onto that piece of cardboard. I dreamed of winning, of course, but more than that, I think I dreamed of making my father proud. I wanted him to see value in what I loved. I wanted him to understand this part of me, this quiet, colorful world that felt so vital, so essentially mine. This painting became more than just a school project. It became a whispered hope.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
The day of the art competition arrived. It was a bright, sunny morning, but a nervous tremor ran through me. I carried my cardboard painting to school. It was wrapped carefully in an old pillowcase. I imagined it displayed with the others. I pictured the judges looking at it. Perhaps they would see the heart I had poured into it. Perhaps they would understand my world, as I had tried to paint it.
The anticipation was a tight knot in my stomach, a mixture of fear and fragile excitement. The submissions were displayed in the school hall. So many paintings, so many drawings. Some were incredibly skilled, far beyond my own attempts. My little cardboard piece looked small and humble amongst them.
Then, disaster struck. During the chaotic process of setting up, someone bumped into my painting. It fell. A large, ugly smudge of blue paint from a neighboring artwork smeared across my carefully painted sky. My house, my world, was now under a bruised, ruined heaven. My heart simply shattered.
Tears welled up, hot and stinging. I quickly picked up my ruined artwork. I didn't want anyone to see my distress. The competition, my hopes, everything felt utterly destroyed. The colors of my world had truly faded in that moment. There was no chance of winning now. There was no chance of even being judged fairly. I felt a profound sense of failure, a deep, aching disappointment that settled heavily in my young chest. It was more than just a ruined painting. It felt like a ruined dream.
I didn't stay to see who won. I couldn't bear it. I mumbled an excuse to my teacher. I carried my spoiled painting home, the pillowcase now a shroud. The walk back was a blur of unshed tears and shame. How could I show this to my father? He would see my failure, my clumsiness. The vibrant hope of the morning had curdled into a gray, listless despair. I just wanted to hide the painting, and myself, away from everyone. The joy of creation had vanished completely.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
The day of the art competition arrived. It was a bright, sunny morning. I carried my cardboard painting to school, wrapped in an old pillowcase. Then, disaster struck. Someone bumped into my painting. It fell. A large, ugly smudge of blue paint smeared across my carefully painted sky. My heart simply shattered. I carried my spoiled painting home, the pillowcase now a shroud.
I hid the ruined painting under my bed. I didn't want to talk about it.
My father found me unusually quiet. He sensed my mood and just sat with me.
Later, he found the painting. The next morning I heard sounds from his workshop. There, on his workbench, was my painting, transformed. He had built a beautiful, simple wooden frame around it. He hadn't fixed the painting. He had honored it.
Every artist needs a good frame.
He had created his own kind of masterpiece.
I stared at the framed painting, my ruined sky, my childish house now encased in beautiful, sturdy oak. It was the most wonderful thing I had ever seen. It wasn't about the painting itself anymore. It was about what my father had done. His calloused hands, usually busy with practical, strong things, had crafted this delicate tribute. He had seen my pain, my disappointment, and he had responded not with empty words of comfort, but with a profound, tangible act of love.
In that moment, something shifted deep within me, a turning point. I understood. I understood that his quietness was not indifference. His practical nature did not mean he couldn't comprehend my artistic dreams. He understood me in a way I hadn't realized. He saw the passion behind my clumsy efforts. He valued what I valued simply because it mattered to me. The frame was more than just wood. It was a message of acceptance, of support, of unwavering love.
The disappointment of the competition faded. It no longer seemed so important. What mattered was this quiet man, my father, who spoke so little of his feelings. He had shown me his heart through his hands once again. But this time, it was not just about providing, it was about understanding the delicate fabric of my dreams. He had validated my passion in the most meaningful way possible.
He taught me that day that true support doesn't always come in loud cheers. Sometimes it comes in the quiet labor of love. That framed painting hung in my room for many years. It was a constant reminder, not of a failed competition, but of a father's profound understanding. He had shown me that even when colors fade, even when dreams are smudged, love can create a different kind of beauty. It can build a frame strong enough to hold even our imperfections. This was the true palette of his heart, rich, warm, and unconditionally supportive. It was a lesson I would carry with me always. The years began to move faster then, like pages turning in a book you can't put down. I grew taller, my voice changed. High school came with its new hallways, new subjects, new faces, new worries. My father, Arthur, remained a constant. Still quiet, still observant. His presence was like a steady hum in the background of my life, always there, even when I was too busy to notice fully. A silent anchor in the swirling currents of adolescence.
My interest continued to lean towards the creative. Writing joined painting. Stories filled notebooks. These were not paths my father knew well. His world was tangible, built with wood and sweat. Mine was woven with words and imagined landscapes. Yet he never questioned my choices. He never pushed me towards a more practical trade. He simply made sure I had paper, pens, a quiet desk lamp for late-night scribbling. His support was in the enabling, not the directing.
I started to see the years etched on him, not just in the lines around his eyes, but in the way he moved a little slower after a long day. The way his shoulders sometimes sagged with a fatigue that seemed bone deep. He still worked just as hard, perhaps harder. The world demanded more, or so it seemed. He never complained, never spoke of his own weariness, but I saw it. I was older now. My eyes were learning to read the unspoken, the subtle language of his enduring sacrifice.
I remember applying for a summer program. A writing workshop far from home. It cost money. Money I knew was not easy to come by. I almost didn't apply, fearing the burden.
You should go for it.
No lecture on finances, no hesitation, just that quiet encouragement. Later I found out he took on extra weekend work, mending roofs, just so I could chase words. His belief in me was a silent, powerful force. The day came when I packed my bags. College called, a city beckoned. Our small house felt even smaller as I prepared to leave.
Few words were spoken, as was his way. A firm handshake, a look in his eyes, that was his goodbye, his blessing.
The road ahead felt vast, a little daunting. I was stepping out from his steady shadow, or so I thought at the time. Living alone was a new kind of education. No one to quietly fix the leaking tap. no one to ensure the pantry was stocked. The silence of my small apartment was loud at first. It was in that quiet in those empty spaces that the echoes of my father's influence grew stronger.
His lessons, unspoken but deeply ingrained, surfaced. Patience in the face of frustration, the importance of a job done right, no matter how small. His quiet diligence became my guide.
I recalled his workshop, the order amidst the creative chaos, the way he respected his tools, his materials. I tried to bring that same care to my studies, my first jobs. When faced with a difficult task, I'd remember his persistence, the way he'd tackle a complex carpentry project step by step with quiet determination.
He wasn't there to tell me what to do, but his example was a blueprint etched in my mind, a silent mentor in my new, independent life. His influence was not in his presence, but in his principles.
There were times I stumbled, made mistakes, times I felt overwhelmed by the demands of adulthood. In those moments I'd think of his well-worn boots, his acceptance of burdens without complaint, his ability to find strength even when tired.
It wasn't about mimicking him exactly. It was about drawing from the well of his character, the lessons he taught through living, not preaching. His quiet strength became an internal compass, guiding me through unfamiliar territories, far from home.
Visits home became precious measured events. I saw my father aging, not rapidly but undeniably. The silver in his hair was more pronounced. His hands, though still strong, moved with more deliberation.
He was still Arthur, my quiet, capable father. But I started to see beyond the invincible figure of my childhood. I saw the man who had carried so much for so long. A tenderness bloomed in my heart, mixed with a profound respect.
He was still a mountain, but now I saw the weathering, the noble erosion of time and tireless effort. One winter he fell ill, a bad flu, the kind that truly lays you low. My mother called, her voice laced with worry. I drove home immediately. To see him frail in bed, it was a shock. This man who was always the caregiver now needed care.
He was uncomplaining even in his discomfort, but his vulnerability was a stark reminder, a reminder of his humanity, his own limits.
He had always seemed boundless in his capacity to give. Now I saw the cost, the finite nature of even his strength.
During that visit, while he rested, my mother and I talked. She shared stories I'd never heard, about the early years, the struggles they faced, the quiet sacrifices he made that I never knew, dreams he had put aside for the sake of our family, opportunities he'd foregone to ensure stability at home.
She spoke of his worries, kept hidden beneath a calm exterior. A richer, deeper portrait of my father emerged, not just a provider, but a man of quiet, immense sacrifice. The depth of his love felt immeasurable.
His strength, I realized, was not just in his physical endurance. It was not just in his skilled hands or his work ethic. His greatest strength was in his capacity for selfless love, the ability to consistently put others before himself, to bear burdens silently, to give without expecting praise.
This was a different kind of strength, a quieter power, more profound than any overt display of heroism. Seeing him vulnerable, hearing my mother's stories, it didn't diminish him in my eyes. It made him even more extraordinary, more deeply loved.
Visits home became precious measured events. I saw my father aging, not rapidly but undeniably. The silver in his hair was more pronounced. His hands, though still strong, moved with more deliberation.
He was still Arthur, my quiet, capable father. But I started to see beyond the invincible figure of my childhood. I saw the man who had carried so much for so long. A tenderness bloomed in my heart, mixed with a profound respect.
He was still a mountain, but now I saw the weathering, the noble erosion of time and tireless effort. One winter he fell ill, a bad flu, the kind that truly lays you low. My mother called, her voice laced with worry. I drove home immediately. To see him frail in bed, it was a shock. This man who was always the caregiver now needed care.
He was uncomplaining even in his discomfort, but his vulnerability was a stark reminder, a reminder of his humanity, his own limits.
He had always seemed boundless in his capacity to give. Now I saw the cost, the finite nature of even his strength.
During that visit, while he rested, my mother and I talked. She shared stories I'd never heard about the early years, the struggles they faced, the quiet sacrifices he made that I never knew, dreams he had put aside for the sake of our family, opportunities he'd foregone to ensure stability at home.
She spoke of his worries, kept hidden beneath a calm exterior. A richer, deeper portrait of my father emerged, not just a provider, but a man of quiet, immense sacrifice. The depth of his love felt immeasurable.
His strength, I realized, was not just in his physical endurance. It was not just in his skilled hands or his work ethic. His greatest strength was in his capacity for selfless love. As I matured, the pieces of my father's life began to fit together like an intricate puzzle, a pattern of profound, understated love and sacrifice. His life was a tapestry woven with countless threads of quiet dedication.
A testament to a life lived for others. His unwavering love, his silent strength, his steadfast presence. His life was a masterclass in fatherhood, a quiet masterpiece framed in pure, enduring love.
This Father's Day felt different. A quiet urgency hummed within me. Years had passed since I left home, but the lessons of my father, Arthur, were always there, a gentle compass pointing towards true north.
I drove the familiar route back to my childhood home. How do you thank someone for a lifetime of quiet sacrifice? For love that asked for nothing in return?
The old town appeared, familiar and unchanged. Each street corner held a memory, a whisper of the past. The oak tree in our front yard stood taller perhaps, or maybe I was just seeing it with different eyes. My heart beat a little faster as I pulled into the driveway. This journey was more than just a physical trip. It was a journey towards an overdue acknowledgement, a pilgrimage to the source of so much of my own strength.
I carried not a gift wrapped in paper, but words, long held, now ready to be spoken. I thought of the framed, smudged painting, still hanging in my apartment, a treasured icon. It wasn't just about art or a childhood disappointment. It was about his profound understanding, his quiet validation. He had always known how to mend more than just wood. He knew how to mend spirits, to build up hope. He did it with his hands, with his presence, with his silence. And now, I needed to tell him I finally understood. That his quiet language had become clear to me, that I had learned to read every unspoken word.
Stepping out of the car, the air felt the same. The scent of my mother's roses, the distant hum of a lawnmower. But I felt different. I was no longer the child. I was an adult, carrying the full weight of appreciation, an appreciation that had deepened with each passing year. Each challenge faced, each small victory won. I walked towards the door, my steps deliberate, ready to offer the only gift that truly mattered, the gift of heartfelt, unreserved gratitude to the man who taught me everything about love. He was in his workshop, of course. The scent of sawdust and old tools welcomed me like a familiar hug. Arthur, my father, looked up from his workbench. His hair was whiter now, the lines on his face deeper, but his eyes, they held the same gentle light, the same quiet knowing that had always comforted me. He smiled, that slow, warm smile of his. He said, his voice calm, unsurprised, as if my arrival on Father's Day was the most natural thing. He always had a way of making me feel expected, welcome.
We talked for a while about small things. The weather, my work in the city, his latest project, the familiar rhythm of our quiet conversations, but the unspoken words hung heavy in the air. The gratitude I carried felt like a physical presence. I fumbled for the right phrases, the perfect sentences. How could I encapsulate a lifetime of love? How could I adequately convey the depth of my feelings?
His patience was a gentle space, allowing me to find my way. He simply waited, his gaze kind, his presence reassuring.
Dad, I wanted to tell you. I understand now.
Understand what?
Everything. Your sacrifices, the things you did for us, for me, the overtime, the worn-out boots, the bookshelf, the way you always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. You taught me so much, not with words, but by who you are.
His hand stilled on the piece of wood he was holding. He didn't say much in response. He never did. But a softness came into his eyes, a glistening I rarely saw. He reached out, his calloused hand covering mine on the workbench. A gentle pressure, a silent acknowledgement. That was his way, his language. In that touch I felt his love, his acceptance. I felt the circle complete, the unspoken finally voiced, the years of quiet giving met with heartfelt thanks. It was a simple moment yet profound, a Father's Day gift that transcended any material offering. A quiet peace settled in the workshop then, the kind of peace that follows a storm or a heartfelt truth.
We sat there for a while, father and son. The silence was no longer heavy with unspoken words. It was filled with a new understanding, a deeper connection.
My father picked up his tool, a small smile playing on his lips. He began to work again, the familiar rhythm returning. But something had shifted between us, palpably.
A weight had been lifted from my heart, and I hoped a measure of joy had been added to his.
Later that day, as I prepared to leave, the feeling lingered. The warmth of that shared moment in the workshop.
My father walked me to my car, just as he always did. His arm rested briefly on my shoulder. "Drive safe," he said, his usual parting words. But today they carried an extra layer of tenderness.
I knew this expression of gratitude wasn't a single event. It wasn't a debt repaid, a chapter closed. It was the beginning of a more conscious appreciation, a daily recognition of the legacy he had built within me.
His love was not a finite resource, given and then gone. It was an unending echo, reverberating through my life. In my choices, in my values, in the way I face challenges.
He had shown me what it meant to be strong, to be kind, to be patient, to be generous, to be steadfast. These were not just abstract concepts. They were the lived reality of the man he was.
The man who taught me everything, often without saying a word. His influence was a quiet river, continuously shaping my landscape.
This Father's Day, the gentle knock on June's door had opened a deeper chamber in my heart, filled with a gratitude so profound it felt like coming home.
Arthur, my father, the carpenter with the extraordinary heart. He had built more than just shelves and cabinets. He had built a life, a family, a legacy of love. And that, I realized, was the most touching story of all.
A story still being written, in the quiet echoes of his enduring presence. A story I would carry with me, always. Arthur's story is a quiet song of a father's devotion. His legacy was not written in headlines, but in small, consistent acts of love. Unseen threads, pulled carefully day after day. These threads formed the strong fabric of their bond, a connection built on his steady presence. This kind of fatherhood, Arthur's kind, touches a universal chord. Their love, a silent, constant current beneath the surface of daily life. The impact of such a quiet, steadfast love is truly immeasurable. Fatherhood often speaks a language without words. Arthur mastered this silent, heartfelt dialect. His messages were conveyed through gentle touch and unwavering presence. This unspoken language of pure love is powerful. Actions echo louder than words. Quiet acts of service define a certain kind of father. These gestures are a testament to his unwavering character. Their influence becomes a permanent part of who we are. A father's love, like Arthur's, is akin to a master weaver. He patiently creates a rich tapestry in his child's life. Each thread is a moment, a lesson, a sacrifice. Bright threads of joy, muted ones of support. Together they form a unique pattern of love. This tapestry is his legacy, beautiful and strong. It warms the soul and shapes us forever. If you have a touching Father's Day story, we'd love to hear it. Share it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories like this one.